Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Salmon17, and today I wanted to talk about something different, something I actually wanted to talk about for a long while. And since with the recent news, with a certain remake that is coming out, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite gaming franchises of all time, and that is Dead Space. Dead Space has been my favorite survival horror game of all time, and I actually have both Dead Space 1 and 2 purchased and downloaded from Steam, and also I bought 2 copies of Dead Space for the PS3. Now, of course, the first game is terrifying, and also is the second game if you actually play it on a harder difficulty, and I just love these games. Like the first, Dead Space was Dead Space was actually one of the first games that actually gave me legit nightmares when I was younger. When the game was first out on 2008, I did not have the proper, what was it called? I had technical limitations, so I could not play games like Dead Space on PC. But I heard that the PC version, as I also noticed, the PC versions, especially for the first game, is kind of not so good. There are some visual glitches, and the game was originally meant for consoles, for the Xbox 360 and the PS3. And of course, my PS3 copy is kind of off. After beating the game on hard difficulty with the pulse rifle and other my favorite weapons, for some reason it does not unlock the impossible difficulty, and when I play the second game, for some reason it does not upload the plasma cutter that you have from the first game. I don't know if it's something to do with the achievements or something like that, or I have the defect copy of the first game. But I'm actually playing the game again on hard mode, starting a whole new game with new weapons to try out, and if I don't unlock the impossible difficulty again with this copy, then I might unfortunately have to buy a new copy for the PS3 for the first Dead Space game. But overall, I wanted to talk about the recent remake that is coming out, the Dead Space Remake. Now, I actually watched a few gameplay footages of the game. I could not play it because we don't have the demo, and of course technical limitations, because I still play games on PS1, on PS2 and PS3, and on my laptop. But my laptop is not strictly aimed for gaming, so because of that I can't play the Dead Space Remake or the awesome edition that is coming out soon on 2nd December this year, and it's the Callisto Protocol, another survival horror, third-person survival horror game made by the same dev team that did the original Dead Space games, the first and the second game. Of course, there's Dead Space 3, but we don't talk about that because that game actually kind of like went off the rails from the survival horror aspect, so we don't talk about that game. But I played Dead Space 3 now. Of course, the gameplay is still the same, but it's more action-oriented, and I feel like the game is way too easy, especially with the weapons you get. Like they're like way too overpowered, and it feels like you're playing a Doom game rather than a survival horror game. But the remake is something a lot of people are excited about, and for a good reason. First of all, the changes they made for the remake is the first and the obvious one is that Isaac is going to be voiced in the remake. And good news is they actually got the original voice actor that did Isaac's voice for Dead Space 2 and 3. And since he's a very iconic voice actor for Isaac Clarke, of course they had to bring him back to voice the character again in the remake. I think that's a cool addition. Another cool addition they made is the fact that the USG Ishimura is going to be more explorable. They actually put more new locations and many other stuff like that. in the remake, so you can actually explore the Ishimura more if you want to. And another cool addition is that the necromorphs are more harder to kill and also more deadlier than ever. Actually, if you go backtracking in the game, you will get jumped, or if you go backtracking like in the previous game, there won't be like safe places. Necromorphs will come after you, and I like that addition because it creates like new scenarios for players who never played the original game. But all the positives, of course, some people say it has better graphics, but honestly, I feel like the first game's graphics still hold up really well, and I still love playing the game on my console. It still terrifies me to this day, and still, the first game is like my very favorite survival horror game, along with the second game. I haven't played the second game. I only beat the story once for the second game. I haven't tried out New Game Plus or the hardcore mode or anything like that. But I'm still trying to, like, for example, for the first game, I'm trying to get the platinum trophy, but it's a slow process because there's some trophies that take forever to actually get. For example, you have to upgrade all your weapons and gear, and you have to beat the entire game only using the plasma car. You have to beat the impossible challenge, but like I said, for some reason the impossible challenge is not unlocked for some reason in my copy of the game, which kind of sucks. So yeah, but I still enjoy playing the game. Dead Space Remake, however, has made changes that I'm not the biggest fan of. Now, those are some of the changes I'm gonna mention. Now, of course, if you guys are interested, I did actually a full playthrough of Dead Space on my channel many years ago. If you guys want to check it out, I would highly recommend checking out the link in the description. I will put the playlist there, the entire playthrough of the game. It's not the best, honestly, but I had fun actually doing it because I love the Dead Space franchise. Honestly, I haven't played the Dead Space Extraction that I have on PS3 because actually, if you guys notice, I actually bought the limited edition of Dead Space 2. That comes with Dead Space Extraction as a playable game, as a bonus, honestly. Of course, the game Dead Space 2 also has multiplayer, but I don't care about that. Thankfully, you don't need to play the multiplayer to get all the trophies for Dead Space 2. There's also the Severed DLC, which didn't come out for PC for whatever reason, but it's basically a continuous story from Extraction. So if you want to play that, I will recommend that. But like I said, you have to buy the console versions to play some of the DLC that came out for Dead Space 2. Sorry, man, it's kind of hard to talk for a real long time. I'm gonna take a few apologies. I needed some water. It's kind of hard to talk really long, especially for a franchise that you grew up with and you really love. Dead Space is a franchise I actually really like because it has a very unique mechanic, especially fighting enemies. Necromorphs are enemies that you don't like in usual horror game fashion or any other third-person shooter. You have to, if you want to kill the enemy, you have to either shoot them in the body with like continuous rounds of bullets, or get him good. If you're good enough, you can get good headshots in the game. Dead Space, however, headshots are a death sentence, because if you shoot the necromorphs in the head, they will spaz out and try to like slash you like blindly, but they still know your location and try to kill you out. So the way you want to kill necromorphs in the Dead Space franchise is by cutting off their limbs, and that I always find that as a cool mechanic because it's very unique and it actually creates very intense situations when you get bombarded by hordes of enemies. Of course, there are other methods to kill off enemies, like for example, the lurker enemy, like the baby necromorph. You have to shoot off its tentacles so you don't waste too many bullets and try to kill it off. The best weapon of choice against the lurkers is the line gun, of course, but of course with the plasma cutter, if you get the plasma cutter rounds shots, you can actually take down the tentacles if you can. Of course, it can get disorienting, especially if you try to kill them in 0G areas, but that's a story for another time. Of course, another change they actually did in the remake, I forgot to mention, is that they actually implemented the 0G mechanics from Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3, where instead of like jumping from place to place like in the original game, you actually can fly. Now, of course, they did this in Dead Space 2, so it's not a very new mechanic, honestly. But I always preferred the flying mechanic in Dead Space 2 over the 0G area. Like, I don't hate the 0G mechanics in the original game, but I feel like the 0G mechanics can get really disorienting, especially if you're in a situation where you have to fight off a horde of necromorphs, honestly, especially those who can actually climb on walls and jump at you, like leapers and lurkers. Of course, another change they made, there's some things I'm not the biggest fan of the remake, and hopefully they will fix, but I highly doubt it. Now, these are my opinions about the remake. Like I said, I haven't played it, the game hasn't come out yet, but I've seen the gameplay footages of the game to actually, you know, try to make the comparison to. And I'm not gonna show any footage or anything like that because it will take too much time, and I'm kind of, well, I'm also pretty, like, I'm a busy person. I can't make videos every day, so it's kind of like things have been really difficult right now. But hopefully I can actually make some discussions about the Dead Space remake, especially some of the negative thoughts I have for the remake. Because of course in today's day and age, it's you can't criticize anything because people are stupid nowadays. But with the remake, hopefully, I hope they will fix some of the issues I have with the remake that did not, and hopefully we'll see some changes over time. Now, the first thing I noticed and heard about the remake is the fact that instead of buying weapons, you actually just find them laying around and just pick them up. And for that, I say I'm not the biggest fan of this, because in the original game, when you actually find the store, you actually get to choose what weapon you want to buy. You have two options, especially after beating the first chapter. You have two options: either buy the line gun or the pulse rifle. And it actually gives a huge replay value for the game, because you can actually test out and try out different kinds of weapons you want to use against the necromorphs. Which one suits you the most? Either the pulse rifle that holds a bajillion rounds, or the line gun that actually cuts off enemies' limbs much easier and with a wider range. And I like that because it gives you a huge replay value and actually tries out different kind of weapon varieties, or different varieties how you dismember enemies' limbs or how you fight off necromorphs. Now, of course, since the game has 7 weapons total, it kind of, with the Dead Space remake, when you pick up different kinds of weapons just lying around, it really defeats the purpose of actually giving players a choice, what weapons they want to use, what weapons they feel comfortable with. Of course, they were bringing out all the weapons from the original game, but I feel like that feels like it kind of tries too hard to be like Doom 2016. Like I noticed in the remake, when you pick up a weapon, it gives you like the cool animation, how the weapon like functions and shit like that. But there lies the problem. Dead Space is not Doom. You have you can only carry 4 weapons in the game, and the weapon variety is not very huge. In games like Doom, you have huge weapon variety because it's an action first-person shooter. You fight the hordes of demons, and you get to choose many different weapons you want to use, and you think are the most effective against the huge amounts of enemies you fight against in these big open areas. You move really fast, you're kicking their asses and stuff like that. It's that kind of game. Dead Space is not that kind of game. Now, of course, the game kind of gets like doomy, especially if you play the game on New Game Plus. But still, you still have only 4 weapons total. The ammo is very scarce in the game, and you have to think about how you upgrade your weapons as well, especially with power nodes. And the fact that in the remake it doesn't give you a choice of what weapon you want to use, it kind of defeats the purpose of giving players the choice of what weapon they want to use. The fact that weapons are not purchasable, I feel like it's not the best choice they made in the remake. And another problem I have is the inventory. Now, if you guys actually notice in the remake, if you watch the remake playthrough, they do this. You have, like I said, you have 4 inventory slots, and I'm gonna pick up my PS3 controller. As you guys can see, the inventory slots are directed on your D-pad. If you press the D-pad, the right D-pad, you choose the weapon you want to use, against the necromorphs. I thought that was a good choice, because your inventory slot is not cluttered like in Resident Evil 4, for example. Your inventory slot is not cluttered with weapons, because you have more space for your health items, for your stasis modules, for your ammo, and you can actually quickly change weapons how you like. Especially if you quickly run out of ammo, you can quickly change to a different weapon to defend yourself against the necromorphs. But in the remake, they have weapons in your inventory slot. In both, you have weapons, okay? You pick them up, but you have to pick them up from your menu and put them in your weapon inventory slot. Now, that doesn't sound like a bad thing, unless you clutter your inventory with weapons. What is the point of having the separate inventory slot for weapons if you're gonna make the regular inventory slot be filled with weapons along with health items and ammo? That is like, why will you do this? You had perfect inventory management in the original game and in Dead Space 2 as well. But then you decide, yeah, let's just like clutter the entire inventory with unnecessary items. That is really bad game design, and I really hope the creators of Dead Space Remake actually notice this and will fix this later when the game finally releases. Because Dead Space can be a really hard game, especially if you play on harder difficulties. If you clutter your inventory with unnecessary shit like weapons, despite the fact that you have a different inventory slot for your weapons, then it's gonna be more difficult to play the game. Now, of course, I feel like the Dead Space Remake creators feel like that is their intention, but what is the point of having different inventory slots if you're gonna fill the regular inventory with weapons as well? Another change in the remake I'm not the biggest fan of is the is the survivor encounters. Now, some people say now, of course, the remake creators don't want to change the iconic, like, crazy stuff, like the guy bashing his head, or the girl slitting her throat with the saw. But in the original game, in the original Dead Space, when you meet the survivors, you actually notice that the survivors have gone through something else other than necromorphs. When you enter the morgue for the first time, you actually meet 3 different survivors that have lost their sanity and unfortunately met their demise. The first encounter is with a woman that worked in a medical tech. She pets a dead corpse of her dead husband, and she says like stuff like that. There's nothing to be afraid of. He's finally here. Like, she actually met Isaac before, but Isaac never met her. So she gives you a kinesis module, and she says, McCoy wants to take me to the shuttle, and she passes out and dies. And you can see, and it's a very disturbing scene because you notice that something has happened in the Ishimura that is not related just with necromorphs. And the second survivor you meet, actually I'm miscalculated. Honestly, you actually meet 4 survivors, but all of them met their demise. The second survivor is, of course, the guy bashing his head. A very creepy and a very iconic scene. And when you get closer, the survivor bashes his head so hard that he splatters his braids all over the wall and just like flies down and dies. And that scene is disturbing because if you look at the person's body, it's very mangled up, torn up, and it's like it gives you like these uneasy questions, like how did this person survive for so long with a body like this? Why did he was banging his head all the way on the wall? Maybe he lost hope or something, and it gives you an uneasy feeling. And in the remake, they make changes with these. The survivor you meet in the second chapter is not the woman who has lost all of sanity. Instead, she's like the ultra badass that holds a pulse rifle. Of course, modern day bullshit, because women can't be weak. All women have to be strong, independent women and stuff like that. And I don't like that change because first of all, it's not realistic. Now, of course, why am I talking about realism in a video game? Because I'm that kind of person that doesn't play video games with realism. But if you're making a game focusing on like realism or graphical violence or something like that, you have to make it believable in a way. Like, there's this woman, alright? She says, I'm in need of holding down the line. I have to hold... She's holding a pulse rifle. A gun, if you look at closely, it looks heavy as all hell. And you see this woman who doesn't look like she can lift the rifle very well with her like very weak arms and stuff like that. With Zach Hammond and other survivors you meet that hold the pulse rifle, you believe that because they're soldiers, they're CEC officers, they are trained for this kind of stuff. Maybe the woman is a CEC officer, you might say, but you need to build the body in a way that feels believable that the person can lift this weapon. Now, of course, Kendra Daniels can lift the pulse rifle, but that's because she's a secret government agent, and you can believe that she can wield a weapon like the pulse rifle without any effort, but because she was trained like that. But another problem lies with the fact that it doesn't feel like like it doesn't give you that creepy feeling that something happened on the ship that besides the necromorphs, and and of course the woman doesn't have a husband or anything like that, because woman can't have romantical feelings towards men, because oh my god, this and that. But of course they have Isaac that has a wife, Nicole Graham. Nicole, I can't say her last name correctly because I think it's Japanese in a way, but I can't pronounce it really well, so I apologize if I say it incorrectly. But Nicole, of course, Nicole is Isaac's wife, or was, if you actually played the first game, and I always found that strange. No, another change is of course the guy bashing his head, and it's not as creepy as it was in the original game. The person's corpse is not mangled up. It doesn't look very creepy. It's not bloody. It's all clean and shit. And I don't like that change because it doesn't give you that creepy atmosphere that Dead Space was originally going for. What was originally meant for. It's a survival horror game, so why are you making survivors look like cleaner versions of themselves, despite the fact that the game is really horror centric? And I don't like these changes because it kind of feels like they make these changes to make it less scary and stuff like that. It's a survival horror game. If you make it less scary, then why are you making the remake? And why are you making stuff that didn't need to be changed at all? Now, of course, they're making necromorphs scary, necromorph encounters scarier, I believe, but they're still. I feel like necromorph encounters were still scary in the original game, and I feel like, of course, they're making some changes with the enemy encounters, but of course, that's how I feel. But another change is Zach Hammond's character. In the original game, Hammond is more heavy focused on the mission. He has disagreements with Kendra Daniels, but he's trying to be optimistic. He's trying to stay on course. He's like I said, he's a soldier. He's a CEC officer, and he tries to do his best to keep things in line and help out Isaac in every way he can. Even to the point he risks his life to try to slow down the air pollution. And you actually meet Hammond in chapter 4 in the bridge, and you also meet him in chapter 6 where he tries to keep for the air. And I really like that because Zach Hammond is a badass character, but at the same time is a very smart character. He actually, even when Kendra is gone, he tries to help out Isaac and even the player to figure out what happened on the ship. And I like how in the previous chapters, in chapter 2 and 3, you actually hear Zach Hammond mentioning that something big is moving out, giving you this the suspense of trying to figure out what the hell is he talking about, what giant thing he encountered. And I like that because it gives you this unnerving feeling, like Zach Hammond is still human. He's still scared of what he's seeing, but at the same time he's trying to keep his head level-headed so he doesn't become a burden towards Isaac and Kendra Daniels. Of course, Kendra Daniels suspects of Hammond being the traitor, but because of the artifact that is discovered by the Shmura called the Marker, and Kendra Daniels thinks he knows about the Marker more. He knows about the Marker more. Than he leads on. But of course he doesn't know anything about the Marker, but he knew where it was held, and it's in cargo bay. but in the remake, for some reason, they make him like sound like a dumbass, and he sounds like he's not very capable of anything besides hiding, or I don't know, like he sounds more cowardly than he was in the original game. Of course, in the original game, he was scared of necromorphs, but he like I said, he's a CEC officer. He tries to be level-headed, especially in his final moments when he encountered the Brute. He tries to make his last stand to try to take it out and help Isaac to continue on with his mission. And I really liked Zach Hammond's character because he's my favorite character in the franchise. Besides, what was it? What was the other? Man, I keep forgetting what was the other character. In Dead Space 2, you actually meet another badass character, but she's a female character. But it's like I said, with like, what was it? What was her name? Lexine Murdoch? I think Lexine was Alexis. I think it was her name. I have, like I said, I haven't played Dead Space for a while, so I keep forgetting names. I think it was Lexine Murdoch, and with her, you actually believe that she was a CEC officer as well. She's trained with this kind of stuff, and Lexine was also a very level-headed and very, very, very well-written character. And the interaction she has with Isaac, you actually believe they are really good friends. And despite Isaac losing his sanity, she still tries to help him out. She trusts him, and when Isaac tries to leave her, she is like, "No, I don't want you to leave me behind because you're the last person that actually helped me get through this far and helped me to survive, and helped me figure out that there are people out there that can be trusted." And in the end of the game, she actually goes out of her way to risk her life to get Isaac out of the sprawl, the space station, when it was exploding. And of course, they both leaving the sprawl that was destroyed in the ship, and they live happily ever after. But getting back on the topic, I'm sorry, I'm just really getting into talking about Dead Space. But in Dead Space Remake, they make Zach Hammond sound like way too paranoid, way too afraid. Like, I don't know, I don't like this change because even in the remake, I heard that when Isaac gets the Captain Matthias's rig for Zach Hammond to examine to find out what happened on the Ishimura and on Aegis 7, in the original game he actually explains what actually happened and what is the necromorph infestation. It's not really an infection, but more like something to do with aliens. And he actually figures this out because he actually figures this out all by himself, because despite the fact that he can't contact Kendra Daniels because he might think she's dead, so he has to help Isaac out in every way possible, because they're the only two survivors at the time left to try to figure out how to deal with the situation that is happening on the Ishimura. But in the remake, they make him sound like a dumbass for some reason, and he's like, "Oh, I got the captain's rig, but I don't know how to figure this computer stuff out. I wish Kendra Daniels was here." And are you kidding me, dude? You're supposed to be a CC officer. I think you should know about how to operate a computer at least. And it's really disorienting because, like I said, I like some of the changes they made for the remake, like having the UG Shimura be more explorable, necromorphs coming out more ways than one, and Isaac being voiced by the same voice actor that voiced Isaac in Dead Space 2 and 3, and I like these changes. but some of the changes I'm a bit I feel a bit off about them, because in the original, like, I feel like the story for the remake and some of the and a lot of the um, and a lot of the what was it, survivor encounters are still good in the original, and I feel like they did not need to be changed. Another change they made for the Dead Space Remake, of course, is the voice actors for other characters, like including Zach Hammond, Nicole Bremen, and many other characters. And I feel like some of the changes they made are not the best ones. So I still prefer playing the original Dead Space game. I still have a physical copy for the game, but like I said, if I want to unlock the impossible difficulty after playing the game the second time, then I might have to buy a new copy for more working copy for the game. So hopefully that will fix some of the problems I have with the game. But with this copy. But overall, Dead Space Remake, I feel like I'm more excited about the Callisto Protocol because it is worked by the same creators who did the original Dead Space games, Dead Space 1 and 2, and hopefully, but unfortunately I won't be able to play the Callisto Protocol. Again, technical limitations. I can't afford a new gaming laptop right now because the gaming laptops nowadays are way too expensive. Another problem, especially with modern games, is the fact that they take away way too much memory, honestly. So for now, I'm just sticking with older games, so I can't really get into buying newer stuff because like I said, getting paid in Latvia, especially basically in smaller countries in general, it's not very easy because because of the limit. There are basically very low career choices, and also the fact that getting paid, no matter what job you go to, especially in a small country, you don't get paid well enough to actually earn enough money to buy something you want to, or even help you sustain yourself by getting enough money to pay your bills or anything like that. So it's kind of really hard to do. So some of you might ask, why don't I just move out in a different country? Now, there's also problems there's also a problem with that. First of all, it's also the obvious one, cash. You have to pay a huge amounts of money to actually fly to another country. And another problem is living expenses. I have to find an apartment to live in to actually, to live there and continue on living. Third problem is the fact that, of course, I'm sorry if I'm getting off topic, but I wanted you guys to explain about why I can't just move out to another country and why I can't. I'm sorry if I'm getting off topic, but the third problem is the fact that, like I said, money. Yeah, I have to pay bills, I have to pay rent, and the issue with that is the fact that it's like things getting more and more expensive nowadays, and it's much harder for people like myself to actually live a normal and sustainable life. Fourth problem is another obvious one. Of some of you viewers, man, I can't do 4. 4 is like this. It's easier like this. Okay. Fourth problem is the fact that I'm both physically and mentally disabled. And for people who are disabled, it's much harder for them to live a normal life. As you guys know, I still live with my parents, with my older sister. My older sister is much older than I am, but even for her, it's much harder to find an apartment she can stay at because she wants to live her own life, but it's not that easy because, of course, with like I said, with the problems with the pay. You can't get a good enough amount. It's hard to find a good job that you get paid well to sustain yourself, or much less to sustain for your entire family. And it's not an easy thing to do. Of course, life in general is not easy, but still, in bigger countries like I don't know, like Germany or Poland or. What was it? I'm trying to think because I've been to that country and I heard it's one of the most richest countries of all time. Slovenia, I think. I don't know. I'm really bad at remembering names. I apologize, especially with no matter if it's a street name or people's names or some of the country names. I'm just really it's really hard for me to remember that stuff. So yeah, man, I feel like a horrible person. But with the bigger countries, you get actual paid well, and you actually have more career options to choose from. Fifth problem is the fact that I have to learn a new language so I can actually live there, live in these other bigger countries properly. Some say I should maybe go to UK or America, but at the same time, like I said, the first problem is the fact that you have to pay for travel expenses, and they're really expensive. So if I want to, and I don't have any connections. I maybe have some connections, but I don't have any much connections in UK or United States, and the problem is living there might be more difficult than I can imagine because, like I said, because of my health problems, and at the same time, the only language I know is English, and I don't know if I'm moving to another country like Germany or I want to like move into a country that is isn't too far from my home. And I can actually use a plane ticket to actually, visit my parents in a holiday or something like that. Because I'm not that heartless. Come on, guys. So yeah, but it's not that easy to actually get. Man, this video is gonna be another long one, isn't it? But it's not that easy to actually live in a different country because I have to learn a new language so I actually can live there properly. If I move to Germany, I have to learn German language so I can actually live there easier, so I can understand what are the signs names or how to talk to people, because a lot of people are they're speaking in German. Of course, there are a lot of Germans who speak in perfect English as well. I actually met some of them, but personally, but English won't be enough for me to live in a country like Germany if I don't learn a German language. Sixth problem is, of course, leaving my family. How will I be able finding a job? Sixth problem is finding a job, because for me it's really difficult to find a job because I'm not the smartest person in the world, and I don't have any like professions to give out to people that to have a sustainable job, to get paid enough well, because what skills do I have? I do editing on YouTube, I do I work on Photoshop, I like to draw, I draw a lot of the things on paper with paper and pencil. I like to play basketball, what else? Bicycle riding, but I haven't ridden on a bicycle for a really long time. I like long walks, and I have very good English knowledge, and that's about it. But other than that, I don't have any other skills to find a very decent job where I get paid well, because maybe an English teacher, maybe, or a tourist that speaks in English. I don't know, but like I said, it's not that easy, and it's kind of hard to be kind of leaving my own country because, of course, why do you want to leave your country? Latvia is your home, but like I said, Latvia is a small country, and you don't get paid enough to actually barely sustain yourself, not much less to sustain your entire. If you want to have a family of your own, and that's the issue. And of course, the seventh problem, that's more a personal gripe for me, and it's the fact that I'm really antisocial. When I live in my own country, mostly I'm more open in other places because I'm more confident because of my good English skills. But at the same time, when I talk to people in my own language, I'm really nervous. I'm really afraid to say anything because, as you guys can hear, I don't have the manliest voice ever, but that's mostly due to the microphone being the way it is. But at the same time, like I said, it's really hard for me to actually find my place in the world and live a life freely, and it's because of how the world has changed nowadays. It's much harder to talk to people. It's much harder to talk to people, especially socially, thanks to the coronavirus and stuff like that, and also how people spend more time on social media than actually leaving their house and talking to people socially. Now, of course, it's kind of weird coming from me because I'm anti-social, but I have been to different kinds of European projects in different countries, and I'm more confident talking to people in English and meeting them and actually being more open to them because I can be myself, I can be more confident, I can actually share my interests and actually maybe find and meet people that like the same things as I do, and it fills me with great joy that I actually meet and I actually physically, I don't mean physically, but socially, I can talk to people, and it feels really great because growing up for me, making friends was really impossible because of my disabilities. I had a hard time controlling my temper. It was really hard to share your hobbies with other people. Speaking of Dead Space, the topic of this video, I was bullied for liking Dead Space. Let me repeat that again. I was bullied for liking Dead Space. I was really excited for the second game to come out, and people bullied me for liking the game. Wow, that's a stupid way of bullying people. And of course I was bullied a lot more with other things besides just liking Dead Space, but I was bullied for liking Spider-Man and for being a big fan of the character. I was bullied a lot for being different from everyone else, and it's been really hard for me to actually be accepted in a society, especially with people around my age. Now, of course, those times are over, but it's still hard to not forget these harsh times I had during my childhood. And the only way for me to actually, for the things that help me to be more happy, of course, is my hobbies like video games, animation, older animation mostly, and what else? I forget. Man, it's kind of harsh. Enjoying some activities I can do on my own without being too about competition and stuff like that. Of course, when I was little, it was hard for me to handle losing really well. I was kind of a sore loser, but that's because, again, it's because of my mental issues. I think I have autism, I believe. One of the doctors said I have a severe case of autism, so that's why it's hard for me to control my temper, my emotional state. And as for physical abilities, like I said, I still been dealing with a terrible skin condition. My left leg was operated because I was born with one leg shorter than the other, and many other things. But still, I'm trying my best here to keep on moving forward and actually meeting new people and many other things. Of course, another happiness I got from was YouTube, but even YouTube is becoming more corrupt and more greedy. Last night, me and my sister actually talked about this, but it's a topic for another day. But still, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I am so sorry this is the longest video I have ever made. I just wanted to talk about my passion, that is the Dead Space franchise. I wanted to tell my own thoughts about the Dead Space remake. I'm sorry I'm not going to show any footage or anything like that about the remake, and also doing a comparison with the original game, because like I said, nowadays I'm really scared to do editing because of YouTube restrictions and their stupid rules. So I apologize if this video is real long, and especially when I try to talk about my personal problems about how to live life, how to live a sustainable life for myself. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and yeah, this is more a positive video. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I will see you guys later or whatever.